Hello, welcome to part 3 of my series. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm ready to get started. Okay, I'm gonna just jump right into it because I know I'm getting the messages and it's coming. I promise. And so I really try my best to commit to getting this recording done. And I'm gonna be honest, I needed time to reflect. I needed time to really make sure that the things I want to say are said. And so I'm going to be casually looking down because I do have my points, because I go off on my tangents, right? And so I have these points to hold myself accountable during this rant. Um, Sidebar, there will be more episodes to come after this series. Not so much doing it face to face, okay? Because I'm learning that it's not for me. Like if I do a series again, maybe I'll show my face, but I'm just not a fan of being on the camera. I'm not comfortable just yet. And this is something that I'm just newly getting into, but I'm finding out I have a passion for. And so you guys are seeing this, in the baby phase. If this podcast ever grows into anything, I don't really care about like levels, but if it grows into anything beyond this, okay, we gonna make sure that this era is very similar to, how companies start off in a garage. That's what this is. Because I don't have the finance equipment, I don't have the lighting. Okay, this is my ring light. Okay, model from 1990. Like that is my ring light, right? You see that, and even still, it's not so great. It's not so great, but I'm using what I have. Okay, right now, we just moved here and we're recovering from a lot of financial things that have happened due to my medical history. And so we're in recovery mode right now. So we're going to have to prioritize things like that later. But this is something I still wanted to put out anyway. I didn't want to wait on finances to be able to do this, because if you wait around for money to do things, you'll never do it. So here I am, roughing it and toughing it out, as mediocre as it comes. Okay, so thank you for staying with me. Thank you for listening. And I hope that you continue to listen, because, again, I'm going to be putting out more episodes, more probably for like just audio, in case I do a series again. And so I hope that you just continue listening. That's my hope. So let's jump into it. Okay, this is part 3 of Breaking My Silence. And in the episode prior to this, I went into the feelings, right, of how I felt during the time of the abuse, what I was thinking about, like, my mental state, things that I was internalizing during that time. And so in this phase of my trauma narrative, this is where I add meaning. This is where I reflect. This is where I reframe. This is where I develop new truths. This is where, I challenge cognitive distortions and irrational thinking patterns. Right, that's what cognitive distortions are. This is where I challenge those things. And this is where myself in present time just goes back and tells that version of myself things that I wish I had heard, things that I wish I had known, and that it's not my fault that I didn't know those things, right? And so I can't blame myself for knowing things that are not doing things because I had no clue, right? And so going back and just, again, reflecting. And so I have my notes, and the first one that I want to dive into is my parents, right? A lot of the shame and that I feel from this experience that I carried for so long, because of this experience. A lot of it is like rooted in my relationship with my parents, the things that I deceived them about, things that I lied about, the secrets that I kept, and just reflecting on how fortunate I am for the parents that I had at that time and the parent that I have now. Um, I just always felt bad for just the things that I did during that time that I knew was completely against, everything they had taught me, right? And so I know when you listen to a story like this, it always, the question of where were the parents pops up, right? Like, it's always blame the parent, blame the parent. And I want to like address that now out the gate, okay? Because in this particular situation, you can't blame my parents, right? And this is me talking to me. It's when I say you, just know I'm speaking in, is that a second person? I forget. Okay, it's been a while. Oh, I mean saying you, but I mean me. But if this is for you, I'm talking to you too. Okay, friend? So, um, you can't blame the parents. Okay. And I say that because in my situation, I was dealing with a predator who was very good at, camouflaging, right? He was very good at hiding things, so much so that he passed the knowledge on to me and therefore made me really good at hiding the secrets that he taught me to keep, right? That he, all of these things that he had me doing that I knew were against what my parents wanted, and I knew it was against the type of daughter that my parents raised me to be. Um, and yeah, just shame, right? And you can't ask where were the parents because wherever they were during that time, they were meant to be. It was meant to be that way. And I say that like this predator was very good at not, just doing enough not to raise concern, not to raise questioning. And I became very skilled at deceiving my parents. I became very skilled at portraying this image of daughter, of perfect daughter, of this is who I am, this is who you raised me to be, being that to them. But on the inside, in the actions that I was doing, the behaviors that I was doing, did not align with that. And so I was always in constant internal, always having internal conflicts about that. And so I just want to end that point by saying, don't blame your parents. Place the blame where it needs to go. And that is on him and no one else. And no one else. My parents knew what I showed them. My parents were aware of what I made them aware of. And the things that they weren't aware of, I worked really hard for it to be that way. And I didn't work that hard because I chose to. I worked that hard because that's what was instructed of me. That's what was expected of me. And so I just wanted to address that, right? Because that did cross my mind once upon a time, like, how was it that I was staying or not staying, but how was I able to sneak out of the house all those times? Why was nobody like checking on me or looking for me? Or why didn't you allow me to go and hang out at his house? But I can only imagine the story behind it. Like I said, I can't recall everything, but whatever, there was a reason why my dad felt comfortable, um, just allowing me to visit. It's a reason why, you know, and my dad, again, he only knew, and my mother only knew what I needed them to know. I'll leave it at that. Another thing that I wanted to address in this part is just this concept of normalcy. Um, I know when you're a victim of grooming, sexual abuse, or just abuse of any kind, there is a there's something that happens where we develop this meaning for normalcy that is rooted in abnormal things, right? Like a lot of the things that we become used to, we see it as normal. But on the outside looking in, you're like, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy. I don't understand that. And the perfect example that I can think of is with my brother. When he was visiting Kansas City and he showed up with my brother from another mother, Kendall, and they confronted the dad because we were all outside sitting in his car talking. And my brother he just could not wrap his brain around the fact that we were all just sitting in the car like that and that the dad was chilling with us. Like, to him, that was so weird, right? That was so like we would in Greg's mind, he's like, what the fuck is going on here? Why are you in the car with them? Why are they chilling? And I was embarrassed. I felt bad. I was like, I'm so sorry that he's acting this way. Let me get out of the car, let me calm him down, let me get my dad, let me blah, 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 because Greg is wrong. And he was not. My brother was not wrong for feeling the way that he felt because it was not normal. But you have to also consider what you define normal to be in those moments, because when you come out of the trauma, you have to redefine normalcy, right? You have to redefine, those behaviors and those, thinking patterns and our responses to things. Some of that shit is not normal. And it's hard to wake up to that. It's hard to replace it. It's hard to redefine it. And it sort of provokes anxiety because you've lost your stability. These are foundational things that you learned over time through this very harmful experience. And then when you realize that the shit wasn't normal, your foundation crumbles and you don't even know where to start to put shit back together. Maybe you don't want to push shit together. That's what happened with me. When my world was rocked and my foundation began to crumble, I demolished the whole fucking structure, the infrastructure. You understand? Demolished. You understand? I had to do away with everything that I believed was true from that experience. And it was hard to separate myself from the experience. And it's crazy to say that because for so long, I was separated from it. Not pretended, but in my world, it didn't exist. It never happened. It wasn't a big deal. So what? Right? I'm just now addressing this because I'm just now understanding that the shit wasn't right. And I'm 34 years old. And so for people who haven't experienced abuse and for people who are wondering what's wrong with me, you asking the wrong question, friend. It's what's happened. And we need to address that. And sometimes addressing shit means letting go of everything you think you know. And it's fucked up. I'm not gonna lie to you. This shit ain't fun. It ain't for the weak. And that's why people don't do it. That's why people don't do the work that's required during this healing shit. Because it's hard fucking work and nobody chooses hard. You understand? Okay. So, there's moving on. I'm trying to keep myself in a good time because I realized that my second episode, like part 2, was long as fuck. It was good. Don't get me wrong. It's almost like Titanic or Avatar, right? It's a good fucking movie, but it's still long as hell. That's how I felt about episode 2. Excuse me. But I had to get it off. I had to get it out. And I regret it. I'm so glad. I'm so sorry my voice is like that. I feel like I sound like a man in the evenings. So bear with me. Moving on, I wanted to address just for a moment how this experience has impacted my views on love languages. For us who had found our persons, our people, our partners, and you were told, it's important to know their love language. And to know a person's love language also means that you are loving them how they want to be loved rather than how you see love, because how you see love is maybe different. And so by understanding a person's love language, you're able to love them how they want to be loved. And I really had to reflect on my love languages over the years, right? Because what's not really talked about with love languages is that they change, right? They are very situation based. They are very much like based on circumstances, seasons of the relationship. And if you've been with somebody for long enough and you're committed to that person, meaning despite whatever it is that may happen in that relationship, if it's not too damaging, maybe we can't come back from this. You fight through everything together. And so relationships do this all the time, right? And as relationships change and, go, your love languages change with those, right? Like, for example, once upon a time, my love language was words of affirmation. Then my love language changed to quality time, right? And now, present moment, my love language is physical touch, right? Now, if you are someone who does not have my experience, you would view your love language as this, great thing, and this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna tell my partner and blah blah blah. But it's different for me, because of my trauma. And I look at love languages as a response to our circumstances. And the only way that I can make that make sense is through my story, right? I'm going to keep it short and keep it brief. But during the time that my love language was words of affirmation, I was in a very abusive marriage. My ex-husband was, we fought. It was a toxic relationship. He was aggressive. I was aggressive. We would physically harm each other. And he was borderline narcissistic. A lot of verbal abuse, a lot of manipulation, a lot of emotional abuse. And so during that time, I just wanted to hear, good things. It wasn't because this is how I want to be loved, because if I'm being honest, at that time, I still had no idea what love was, because my definition of love was rooted in this very traumatic experience. And so there were so many times where I felt like he did not love me. I felt like because of how he was acting and the behaviors that were happening, the choices that were being made, this can in no way be love. But his words told a different story, and they made me feel better because they're all I had. I can't rely on your actions. I can't rely on your behaviors to find love there because I don't see it. Right. But what I hear is you say you love me. I hear you say these things. I hear you do this. And so I crave that. I crave hearing, you're such a wonderful wife. You're an amazing cook. This dinner is amazing. Because I felt so worthless and I didn't know how to self-validate. I relied on external validation often. I still do, to a certain degree. And I relied on that. I needed it. I needed you to say it. Right? And again, that was all that I had. And so again, that was my love language at the time, but the root, you see what I'm saying? And then quality time became my love language. And when my love language was quality time, I was a student at KU. I was living in Lawrence, Kansas with my daughter. I was by myself. It was my first time being by myself, meaning like having my own place by myself with just my daughter. And I was very lonely. I didn't know how to be alone. I struggled with being alone. Um, my worth is found in my, what I can give to someone else physically. And I struggled with not having that. That time where I lived in Lawrence, Kansas was probably mentally the worst I had ever been, right? And because I felt lonely and because I hated being alone, when people spent time with me, it meant the world to me, right? When you just was in my presence, was in my space, you sat with me and talked with me and spent time with me and made me feel, like it made me feel good. It meant everything. And so you see, like that was my love language at that time. But the root again is it's not happy. It's not a happy experience. And so now my love language is physical touch. And I know you're like, oh, it's rooted in trauma, blah, 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 like all the others. But this part is where it's beautiful, where healing is beautiful, right? It's because that's not the only way that that's not the only way you'll have a love language, just like through trauma, right? Like, oh, you have this love language, but this is the root. When healing happens, right, is happening and taking place, and you're committed to it, and you're intentional about it, you start to work on things, you start to work through things, and a lot of those roots, you chip them away. You chip them away, right? And for the first time in a long time, probably the first time ever, I truly felt safe with someone. I truly feel like, my worth is not found in them or the things that I can do for them. I'm prioritized. My voice matters. He doesn't, have any intentions of causing me harm. And he would probably kill behind me. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. And he just makes me feel very safe. And I love his presence. And I'm very in tune with myself now. And I realize that I have anxiety attacks often, because anxiety attacks aren't always what they look like this hyperventilating and, you know, like this extreme thing. Hyper or anxiety attacks can be very subtle. And so when I really learned what an anxiety attack is, I realized that I am anxious all the time. And it's hard for me. I had to learn how to self-soothe. I had to learn how to be, how to have more mindfulness training and do more mindfulness things to keep myself in present moment. And I'm not gonna lie, it was hard. Going up against my anxiety was super difficult. It still is. But the one thing that calms my storm is my man looking over and being so in tune with me that he can sense that I'm anxious. He can sense that mentally I'm somewhere else in that moment, that I'm overwhelmed, that I'm worrying about something. I don't even have to say much because I do struggle with communicating my internal thoughts, and my feelings. And he will put his hand on my leg. He'll hold my hand. He'll hug me. He'll pull me close to him. He'll kiss me on my on my forehead. And it just makes me feel seen. Makes me feel seen and makes me feel supported, protected, nurtured. It just feeds my spirit, feeds my soul. Excuse me. My allergies is kicking my kids. And so at the moment, my love language is just rooted in healing. And I love that for me. Okay. I love that for me. But the point to that is to really evaluate your love language, friend, and find out what it's rooted in, because it may not be what you think. And it may not be this happy go lucky thing. And you're teaching your partner how to love you when really you're teaching your partner how to re traumatize you, because your love language is a trauma response. You got to figure that out. And that's what I learned about myself. Um, the next thing I want to mention, it is just my issues with shame, right? Shame was the most present, loudest emotion in this whole experience, right? Is shame. And I've learned that shame means blame, right? That I am taking responsibility for things. This isn't my fault. Therefore, it makes me a bad person, right? When you feel guilt, it's a very like, I always like to talk about the difference between guilt and shame. So forgive me for this tangent, but it's very relevant, right? Because guilt is sort of rooted in like this action, right? I did this, made this person feel this way. I said this, and now I feel bad for that. I feel bad that I did this, or that I said this, or made this person feel this way. That's guilt. What shame is, it says, I am bad. I am a terrible person, right? I am this. It becomes a part of our identity, right? And we carry it for a long period of time. It takes a long time for people to address shame. And first you have to find out if that's, you know, first you even have to acknowledge that you're feeling that. And even that takes time, right? So shame is almost like weight, right? Easy as hell to fucking gain, hard as fuck to lose. You understand? So I was asking the wrong questions when it came to my experience with this. Why didn't you pay more attention? Well, how could you do this? Why didn't you let him do this? Why didn't you stay? Why didn't you believe him? Why didn't you go along with this? Why? What's wrong with you? That's how I was talking to that 17, 18, 19-year-old me during that time under the spell of a predator. I was blaming her and saying it's your fault because you should have known better. How, sis? And you got to talk to yourself like that sometimes. How? How did you expect me to know? Hindsight is 2020. Don't talk to me all crazy because now you figured it out, because back then I had no idea. And guess what? It took you plus, you're 34 now and you're just finding it out. I was 17. I was 18. I was 19. Relinquish your expectations of me and stop telling me what the fuck I should have known when you're just finding it out. You got to talk to yourself like that sometimes, right? You have to advocate for that former version of you. that version of you that went through that experience. You have to stand up for her now, right? And stop blaming her for things that were not her fault, for things that were not her responsibility, and say that to yourself. It was not your fault, Ashley. You were not a bad kid. You were not a hoe. You were not fast. You were not, just hyper, sexual. You weren't, you just weren't all of those things that society says teenagers are when they do those things. Right. And I know for a long time you believed that you were, and you feel like you had to lower yourself, to meet that, to keep that persona going. And it was a persona that wasn't even crafted by you. Right. And so, yes, if you are someone who is experiencing shame when it comes to any form of abuse, you look yourself in the eyes and you tell yourself to stop, cut it out, stop fucking playing with me, because you know it's not your fault. And if you don't know, I'm telling you until you do know. I'm gonna say it so much to where you ain't got no choice but to believe it, because that is what the truth is. And sometimes we don't understand, or we're not aware that we're in the fucking, what's that shit? The sunken place, right? Flash the camera for yourself, baby. Because wake up from that way of thinking. It is not your fault what happened to you. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not the things that you say you are, and you never have been. Just say it. Remind yourself of it constantly, because that's what I had to do. We don't. It's not that we forget what the truth is. Sometimes we just don't fucking know it. So tell yourself what the truth is, because the only person that is going to pull you up from this is you. All right, that's my word on that. Moving on. My relationship with sex is a big topic. A full disclosure, might be TMI, but I don't care. Y'all my friends now, so get over it. And I don't sugarcoat with my friends. Okay. So I have a very terrible, terrible relationship with sex. I still am very nervous, or awkward during sex, especially with lights on. It's hard for me to make eye contact. And for a long time, sex to me was like a performance. Like I just had to put on a really good show so that he can get the best nut of his life. Like that's the goal. I need to do whatever I can to make him satisfied. The sex is not for me, it's for him. And my job is to make it the best it can be for him. Right. And so when I was in this, experience, a lot of times sexual things were done in the dark, on the phone, without someone physically there doing these things to me. And so it was very uncomfortable for me to do the things physically with people. It was almost like I didn't know what to do with my body, because I'm used to someone telling me what to do. I'm used to having my eyes closed and visualizing these things. And I'm used to doing all the fucking work. Right? And so sex was not for my pleasure. That was the thing. And now that healing has taken place, I am learning, I had to rebuild my relationship with sex. Now, granted, I am still um, building like comfort. I'm becoming more like, I guess just allowing myself to be pleased, right? And to sort of just let that idea go that enjoyable sex is up to me, right? I can just allow myself to be pleased. And I'm with someone who loves to please. And I have to allow them to do that and relinquish the control, the puppeteering that takes place um, when I participate in sex. I am not in control of everything, and I don't need to be. Right. And so again, I had to rebuild that relationship. I always thought that sex was just a requirement, something I had to do, part of the job, something that gave me this false sense of worth and value. I can only be of valuable and worth to this person if I'm pleasing them sexually. And so when I went through the whole phase, right, I was um just trying to get to that as quickly as I can. Let me show this person I care about them and that I want to do this. I want to take this, whatever. Let me just do that and have sex with them. And I had no way of knowing that boys in that time, they weren't having sex with you for relationships, right? Men can definitely have sex with somebody and it mean absolutely nothing. And that's that significant difference between women and men that I don't think we account for when it comes to sex and intimacy, is that you can very much pretend, friend, that sex doesn't make you feel shit. If sex doesn't make you feel something, you have a lot of healing to do. And that it's not a bad thing at all. That is just my belief, and it is based on my real experience. If you can lay there and have sex with a man and be like, okay, bye, Felicia, and go and fuck somebody else the next day and be like, yeah, I got hoes in different area codes and blah, blah. As a woman, you have some healing to do. This is one from me to you, friend. Okay. And again, it's no judgment. It's no judgment. And it wasn't judgment. It shouldn't have been judgment for me either. But I did. I judged myself for a long time for those things that I've done sexually with men and my whole phase. I've judged myself for that. And I shouldn't have, because I didn't ask what was happening or what had happened. Right. And so um that's my spiel about it, about sex and intimacy and all of those things. I am just now getting to a point where sex is something that I truly enjoy. And I love to please, not out of obligation, but just out of pure satisfaction. Right? There's nothing negative associated with sex when it comes to present day. And there was in the beginning. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there was a point in time where we were struggling financially. And Nate is he's a great man. And he was struggling with the fact that, um, as a man, he felt like he wasn't providing for his household. And I've never had to witness a man go through that. It was my first time witnessing a man go through like that situation where they feel like, as a man, they weren't doing their part, contributing to their household and being what is the man to them in a relationship. Um, and it was tough. It was hard watching him go through that. And not just physically, but mentally as well. And I say that now, but back then, it was very much like, why don't you want to have sex with me? Because he started to feel so less than that he had to get his ego stroked elsewhere, right? He wasn't so much meeting women, having sex with them, um, but he was looking for that external validation. He felt so low within himself, his mental health, right? That he went looking for external validation. He needed someone else to say, "You're a great guy. Oh, you're this and you're that," because of how he felt about himself, right? And so he wasn't, we weren't having sex as often as we were. And that was a problem for somebody who finds value and worth in sex. To me, if you're not fucking me, you don't love me. If you're not having sex with me, you don't care. Something's wrong with me. What's wrong? I'm unattractive. I'm this and I'm that. Right? Because I was only looking, digging, I wasn't even I wasn't even breaking the surface. I didn't care to, I didn't see it then, right? That it wasn't even about me in that moment, but because I have that trauma, that was my response, right? And that became an issue for me. And so, but again, once healing takes place and therapy happens, you realize that that shit was the way that I was acting during that time was just, uh, yeah. And you gotta do that too. You gotta let yourself know, like, girl, what was she thinking? Oh my God. But yes, and so again, when we wouldn't have sex, that would bother me. Um, but now it's just like it's not the end all be all. I'm not looking for my worth and my value in sex. And if it doesn't happen, which is not, and it's crazy because that's not even a worry anymore. I mean, there are things that have happened in our relationship that have healed some of those things and those ways of thinking. And so he's not in that mental space. I'm not in that mental space. And we both grown so much mentally together. And I ain't gonna say too much, but I have no complaints these days. Okay. Your girl ain't going nowhere. No, but seriously, I'm just blessed. Okay. But some true work had to be done to get us here. And so I just want to put that out there that just do the fucking work, friend. Do it for you, do it for your person, do it for your kiddos. Because once you become a better healed you, everything else around you just gets better. I know, people don't really talk about the influence of a woman, of a real, true healed woman, the presence of her, the responsibility that comes with her and what she pours into the things and people around her. When you are better, when you are good, the things around you will get better and the things around you will be good. Right. And so if you exist in a world that is chaotic, that is depressing, that is all of these things, I encourage you to reflect and to maybe consider that your environment may be a reflection of your mental instability. Okay? Think about it. I can't tell you what to do, friend. Okay? Next thing is my self-doubt. I am someone who struggles really bad with imposter syndrome. And it's rooted in perfectionism. The conversation for another day. Okay? But the point of this is my self-doubt. This experience made me believe that I could not trust myself, right? When I would question things, when I suspected things, he always had, he was always able to disprove. He was always able to make me feel dumb, to make me feel crazy, to make me feel stupid. And he made me go against my intuition, my gut feeling, and that secret weapon, superpower that we have as women, that, where our spidey senses start tingling with some shame, right? And it's usually 99.9999% of the time It's correct, right? He was teaching me, or he taught me, I couldn't trust that, right? I could no longer trust or use that superpower, right? And so it created just this huge, huge sense of self-doubt. And I doubted myself everywhere. Started to generalize it completely. Now I feel like I just couldn't make smart choices. I became indecisive. I didn't trust my gut feelings anymore, completely ignored them, gave everybody the benefit of the doubt, ignored clear red flags for a long time because my self-doubt was so fucking low. If you find yourself in a situation where you're questioning everything around you, and I want you to question if you're convincing yourself not to believe it, right? Because that should let you know that you're saying you can't trust yourself. And where does that come from? Ask that question, okay? Where did this come from? Why do I feel like I can't trust a thing I fucking say? This is what my gut is telling me. This is what, my intuition is telling me. But I can't trust that because it's been disproven in the past. It hasn't. To realize like that shit was lies. To remind yourself of that and say all of that shit was a lie. Everything he told you was a lie. And it was written in pure game on his side. It in no way had your best interest at heart. No way whatsoever. It was not love. It was not all the things that you told yourself. Oh, but he loves me, but this and that, blah, 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 but this person, but that person, that can't be. Yes, it is. Okay? Believe it the first time. Believe who people showing you they are. Right? And you could be a person that truly wants the best. You could be a person who's craving love. But you also have to be okay with the fact that love isn't found everywhere. It's not. And how can it be, right? When you're supposed to really know. How can you really know if you found your person, if you find love everywhere? Right? Then you'd always be with the wrong person. And you find yourself stuck in there trying to convince yourself that this is where I need to be. And that's why we get scared to let shit go. Because to let it go means that we went against ourselves. And you have to come face to face with that. To say that I should have listened to you. To yourself, right? I should have listened to you. And for you to be like, that's okay. Don't tell yourself I told you so. Right? Like you should listen to me, bitch. You don't have to come to yourself like that. But just be like, I know. And that's okay. Because we're here now. Right? We're here now. And as bad as experiences may be, it's almost baffling to realize that, again, as bad as they were, we needed them too. And in some way, that means that we have to be grateful for them. And that shit ain't sit right with me. I'm not ready for that. I understand that. I do. But I'm still working on that. I'm still working on the gratitude behind the lessons learned from traumatic experiences, because they do shape us. But sometimes we find ourselves on the other side of those experiences. And so if you are a person who is currently going through some shit, the you that you hope to be in the future needs you right now. Okay? She is counting on you to make it through this. And you will. Okay? You have to believe that, friend. Another thing is just my dating after this experience. Okay, I had huge red flags. I had my expectation list for a partner was just high. You know what I'm saying? And mind you, I was a person who was very much actively looking for a partner, but was still fucking. Again, I had some healing to do. Okay. But that was very much me. Um, I could have sex with you because giving my body to you really didn't mean shit. Didn't mean shit to me because I was so clueless about, the divine, all the shit that we know now about being a woman, like WOMB men, right? Um, that is something I know now, the importance of valuing my temple and my body, and that my body is the greatest thing that I can give to a man, right? It's not the least. It's not the bare minimum that I can give. It is the greatest thing that I can give to a man. And so that is what I believe now. But during that time, it wasn't, right? And so I could do that. But the person who I was looking for to date, my list for that requirement was high, long list. And it was because I didn't trust people. I didn't trust people so bad that when I would get into relationships, I would go looking for things. I was that girl who would go through your phone while you were sleeping. I was that girl who would question, if you said you were going out with your friends, I would question if you was really out with your friends, and I blow up your phone all night, and just text you because I just wanted to be a part of your evening. That was me in that time. I ain't like that now, but that was me because I had a fear, an irrational fear of being hurt by someone, right? So much so that I would go looking for it. And when I did find what I was looking for, it would be like, see, I told you. It's almost like I was hoping for things to go wrong. And I don't want to label that as self-sabotaging, because I would find out things. I became the world, at that point, I was already the world's greatest detective, right? But I didn't want to be hurt. And that's not what I wanted, but it was very reassuring to me when I did find something, when I did find out that they were cheating, or when I did find out they had lied about something. It was almost like, ooh, a relief. Like, all right, cool. And it'd be like something for me to now I have a reason to move on. Now I have a reason to let this person go. But again, I will go looking for it. But there were times when situations would fall in my lap, right? Where, I really wasn't looking for things like in my marriage. My ex-husband cheated on me a lot, and I never went looking for it. People would hit me up and send me screenshots of his Plenty of Fish account saying that, ain't this your husband? Like, he just had me out here looking like a fool. He went to go see another girl in my car on my birthday after leaving me, at the rec center saying, okay, I'm about to go get your surprise and I need you to wait here. Well, I go get it. And he texts my car to go do that. But really, he went to go see his side piece. All right, that's that kind of shit that I was dealing with. And that was something that was done often. What? That's welcome home. Actually, that. That's all. Yes. Family's calling now. But what was I saying? Why did I bring up my marriage and all the shit? Something that triggered something, didn't it? Because I started saying a whole bunch of examples. My things that happened in my marriage is probably another series I might make, because that was an experience. Okay. But that was my point. So in that marriage, I never went looking. I just always found out. It was a very much that theme of what's done in the dark always comes to the light. But see, I got to a point where I couldn't wait for all to be revealed. So I was like, let me just hurry up and find it so I can be like, because I know you're doing something, because men do. So let me just hurry up and find it so I can, and then I can feel better about fucking Tyrone tonight because y'all really ain't shit. That was my mental during that time. And saying it out loud, it helps because it makes you realize how fucked up your mind was. How just your self-worth, your self-hatred, all that shit was high. All that stuff can be high after going through an experience like this. But once you find the root of it, it takes the weight off of saying this is who I was. It's not who you are. Right now, you are just a product of a very bad situation that you are yet to heal from. And it's time for you to address it so that you can chip away all that shit and really be your authentic self, right? And that's another point that I want us to get to was that, going against your authentic self is something that I did for years. And when you go against your authentic self, like for example, that version of me during that time that where you had me as the daughter and me as the plaything. I don't know what to call myself. His puppet, right? And you had me as the daughter, me as the puppet. And they were bumping heads, right? Because, I mean, for years, they didn't align, right? This is who I authentically am. I am a kid who has morals, who has standards, who believes that there are things that as a young woman, as a young lady, you're not supposed to be doing. That was my authentic self. And the things that I was doing with him went against my authentic self. And we don't realize how often we do that and how we do it for so long that we forget who the fuck our authentic self is because we've been running over it for years. Right? And that's why a lot of us struggle with identity. That's why a lot of us feel like we have no idea who we are. Right? It's not that you don't know, it's that you've forgotten. You need to find your way back to her. Right? And understand that there are things that have happened to you that have caused you to lose your way and separate from your authentic self. They couldn't coexist together. And it may seem like, oh, but I chose this over my authentic self. You didn't. Okay? So cut that shit out. You didn't. Find your way back to her. Remind yourself of who the fuck you used to be. Okay? Because again, it's not that you don't have a clue or that you don't know. You've just forgotten. You have to get to know her all over again. So find your way back to her. That was another thing I learned. And this other point, again, was rooted in sex, me learning that, women being pleased doesn't really matter, right? I talk about my relationship with sex a lot just because it really is a complex topic. I'm currently looking for sex therapists. That's how much I want to dive into it. But, again, my job is making sure, he has the best experience. It definitely was this performance. But I thought that as women, that's what we were supposed to do. I thought that was how sex was supposed to go. I thought that way for a long time. So much so that, again, I didn't have a true sexual experience the way that it's intended until the relationship I'm in now. And even still, it didn't start out that way in the beginning. Right? I'm being honest. This podcast is all about being real, raw, authentic, and that was a real struggle. Was that in the beginning, I very much was just doing the performance because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. right? I had to again redefine it, rebuild it once healing started to happen. And I was going down this journey and embarking on this journey, you have to again have that understanding that you're gonna have to demolish some shit. Okay? You're gonna have to rebuild. You are going to have to redefine, reframe, and enjoy it. You know, it's a beautiful thing. We love going through the dating phase when it's good and getting to know people and blah blah blah. You have to really get to know yourself. And sidebar, all women, especially Black women, need a hobby. Okay, something that is for you, something that you enjoy. We all need a hobby. Okay, but redefine what it means to be woman, right? And recognize that your description or your perception of woman may be rooted in things it shouldn't be, right? Rip up that shit. I'm not a gardener. I wish I was, but I've seen like the videos where the shit don't work out and they gotta rip that shit up off the ground and they gotta burn everything and redo everything. Do that to this. You understand? So that we can grow from some healthy soil. Okay? Because right now you trying to grow plants and some shit that like I said, I ain't got no garden, but y'all get my analogy. um and then this last one, I'm doing really good on time. And then this last one is my issues with abandonment, my issues with attachment, rejection. Um, Again, me not wanting to be alone. I did not know how to be alone. And again, I go looking for love in all the wrong places, right? That's the real thing. Trying to find value and worth. Um, Plus, he really talked to me and treated me really bad. All right, this is a person who claimed to love me, to care about me, and the way that he treated me and the way that he talked to me was terrible. Was absolutely terrible. It made me feel like absolutely nothing. It made me feel worthless, like I had no value. And so if you are a person who is struggling to be alone, who is struggling with being by yourself and having to constantly have a man up under you, or, if you were someone like me who was dating somebody or was in a relationship with somebody and y'all broke up and you were upset and mad, and the next day you made a Tinder account or something like that because you needed someone around you. You needed to be doing something to get that worth back, to get that value back, because this person made you feel like nothing, treated you like nothing. And when your worth and your value is rooted in sex and trauma, you go looking for that. That's why people need to rethink whole phases. Whole phases are not what society paints them to be. Whole phases are cries for help. Do you understand? This is your body communicating to you. Listen to me. I am going through something. Something is happening to me. And we're just failing to listen. And that's not a bad thing. There's nothing bad about this. Right? It's nothing wrong with learning that about yourself. But people need to stop treating whole phases like they're just this way or rite of passage for women. It's not. It's not. It is a very desperate, toxic, and harmful attempt at finding worth and finding value. And yes, can't hear you. Yes. Okay. Um, and so yeah, my I have a bad history of that. I have a bad history with men in general before. Um, my man that I'm with now. Um, because a lot of the relationships from my past were abusive. And it didn't take me long to like get out of a relationship with Duarte and date my husband, my ex-husband. Um, he was the next person right after their relationship, and um, surprisingly enough, he was just as not just as bad. That's the wrong way of putting it, but still very narcissistic, still very verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, all the things that felt like home, right? And so it took me a long time to leave that relationship. Um, took me a long time to let it go, and it took me a long time to believe that I deserved better than that. So a lot of times when we're struggling to leave bad situations, even when we know they're bad, we're not failing to leave them for the reasons that you think. Sometimes we don't leave because we feel like this is what we deserve. Sometimes we feel so much shame for certain situations that we look at this as the punishment that I deserve. Right? Like, this is a terrible situation. I'm being treated this way, but because I am this, I deserve this. Right? And we believe that for a long time until somebody comes in, like a friend like me, grabs you by your collar, shakes you up a bit, shakes you the fuck up, right? And lets you know that you do deserve better. And there is more value and worth to you than you know. Your existence matters. Your experience matters. What the fuck you internalize matters. Your voice matters. Okay? And if nobody has told you that before ever, I'm telling you right now that it does. Okay? Be friends with me long enough and I'll have you feel like you can motherfucking change the fucking world. You understand? Because you deserve it, friend. We all do. We all do. I encourage anybody who finds themselves in a similar situation as mine to not let the fucked up ass situation define you, to acknowledge what the lies are and accept what the truths are. And that some of those truths may be hard. Some of those truths may cause a bit of a resistance, right? Because they're hard fucking truths to accept. My truth is that I went through an experience, a very traumatic experience that shaped me in ways that were harmful and detrimental to my well-being, to my, well, what I call the human experience. And in order for me to live a fulfilled and purposeful life, I had to address these things. I had to acknowledge these things. I had to accept these things and say to myself that this is just part of my experience. If life or our experience, our human experience, is this grand novel as it should be, moments and situations like these are but a chapter. You understand? There is so much more to be written. Okay? I try my best to remember that, and I hope that you remember it too. And I hope this helps somebody. I really do. The lessons that I've learned are ones that I will carry with me always. Ones that I plan to pass along and to pay forward. And so I really hope that this was helpful to someone, anyone, one person. And that's enough for me. So if you enjoyed this series, which I really hope you did, stay tuned, okay? Because I'm going to be putting out some more episodes. just giving a brief, sort of a not really sneak peek, but just kind of a short, brief description of the podcast. And it basically is kind of like this, where I just use the art of storytelling and ranting, right, as a therapist in therapy, where things cross my mind and I'm trying to get into a better habit of voicing the things that I internalize. And the things that I learned throughout this process are things that I read about, and I just want to um, make it a point to pay it forward and bring you guys to my world with hopes that you'll find yourselves in my stories. And again, they're intended to be real, raw, unfiltered, minimal editing. Everything that I talk about in that episode are things that I'm processing in real time. So there's a lot of what the fuck moments and mess ups and hiccups. And so if you're ready for the craziness that is me and my mind, I encourage you to tune in. Uh, and I just think you'll love it. I really do. So happy healing, friend. If you're looking for a space that hears you, that sees you, that understands you, you found it, friend. You found it. Okay. So, like, a lot of these episodes are going to be audio. If I'm feeling brave enough to get on this camera again, I promise you I will. But I hope for, again, we're friends now. Okay. Me and you, we friends now. So, hey, friend. Okay. And I'm going to see you later. I'm going to see you again. And we got a lot to talk about. Okay. So, have a good one. Have a good week. And, yeah, see you next time. That's the opera shit behind the camera. I don't even know how to fucking end it. Bye, friend. Okay. Bye. Yeah.